All
Hey,
right.
hey friends, this is Erman Baradi. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's okay. Well, you know it's me because I am myself is in the background. That's me up there. So you know it's my room. On some random brown board. There I am. But no, this is awesome. We're doing this show. It's a show about nothing, guys. So thanks so much for giving me your faith and your attention, even though I'm doing a series of nothing, a show about nothing. But our first guest is a cool friend of mine. I've known him for a few weeks now. Um, his name is Robert Pfeiffer, a filmmaker and paranormal investigator from Massachusetts, who is currently planning on moving to LA at some point
Mm-hmm.
to pursue filmmaking and continue ghost hunting, which is awesome. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and like I said, it's a show about nothing, but I want to interview you because I am a big fan of anything paranormal, anything scary. I'm down.
Oh,
So
nice.
during this conversation, I do have a favor to ask you. When you tell your stories, please keep it to the scare factor to a minimum because I am by myself. Uh,
Okay, I'll try
my
to.
family's gone, so they're out
Well,
and
keep in
about.
mind too that I'm also by myself, and since I'm the one who did experience these true encounters, which I am about to talk about, I just hope nothing's gonna come back and haunt
Oh
me
yeah,
while
for sure.
I'm telling these.
I'm
So
actually
I'm by
hoping nothing
myself too.
happens. I'm hoping nothing happens while we're speaking to each other. You know,
Right. Yep. Oh my God. Yes. And plus, because
my closet's creepy. It's broken. The door's broken. So every night it's already open. So I'm staring into my closet.
well, as a matter of fact, too, because I mean, you can't see. I have a closet right over here, and
Yeah.
it's completely wide open. And as a matter of fact, too, when I was growing up, one of my old houses I used to live in, I had a really big closet that was in my room. And every single night when I went to bed or before I would go to bed, I always had to make sure the closet doors would be closed because then if they weren't, and there's the fear that I would wake up at say at my age, I don't know, it's maybe between 7 and 9, I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I would, see that the doors are open and there'd be a figure standing at the foot of my bed or something that came out of the closet, which did happen once.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that.
Yes, we are. Oh
We're gonna get
God.
into that. But Robert, thanks so much. First, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think this is your first interview, so
It
shake
is
it off,
actually.
man. You're gonna be good. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be just fine.
Hopefully, we'll all bring you all on a
Oh
journey with
yeah,
us.
oh yeah. But no, I've always been intrigued by paranormal, and for someone like
Hmm.
you've actually been directly in touch with the other side. You know,
Yep,
2020 is already a scary time, but you have scary stories to share with us. So let's get into
I
that.
do.
Talk about your interest early on into why you wanted to pursue paranormal investigation. I'm sure something happened to you first that made you intrigued about it. You wouldn't just go, I wonder what this is about, and then did it. I'm sure something happened to you first. So talk about your journey and how you got started in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my journey actually began when because also just for the record too, I mean I've lived everywhere. I for about 7 years. I also used to live up in Canada for a while, and so while I was living up there, I think this happened when I was maybe about I'm gonna roughly estimate to guess 6 years old. I lived in kind of like a townhouse complex area, and what happened was I remember there was one particular night where it was me, my older sister and my older brother, and we were all hanging out with some of the townhouse local residential kids in the area. And I remember there was one particular townhouse where I think for the longest time it was always it was empty, like no one lived there and stuff. And the windows and from what I remember, the windows and the doors were always locked up and everything. But then there was one particular night of my year of being at the age 6 where I think some of the town kids were noticing that they were seeing there were weird lights that were flickering on and off inside this one particular house. And I guess I think it was on the one of the top windows, if I can almost remember this visually too. One of the top windows, people said that they were seeing shadow figures that were moving back and forth across the window and stuff. And it's no explanation because nothing like this had ever happened and stuff. So, and then I remember actually it was going on for a while, and then we ended up having to call the local authorities, the cops, and then they came, and they were just they were baffled too, from what I remember, because all the windows were locked and everything, and all the doors were locked and everything, so there's no way to get in. So maybe maybe the light thing could have been a bad electrical current that was on its last circuit or something. But then of course how would you explain the shadows moving back and forth? So that happened. I mean, nothing else really developed out of that, but that happened stuff. And then I just remember that pondered to me. I'm just what was causing that to happen? I'm like, what kind of like invisible, mysterious force, or what moving object could have been like, causing those shadows to move back and forth like that in a house or in a complex house that had been empty for the longest time ever, and there was no signs of any like indication of where someone could have broken in or something. And so I remember that happened, and then oops, sorry, I gotta clear my throat here.
Good.
And then so that happened, and then I just remember like after that moment happened, as time started to progress on, like at the time I wasn't really thinking too much all about it, but then like I started hearing people talking about ghost stories, and that's when I think like I started to like wrap my head around the idea, first of all, like when it came to people talking about ghost stories and stuff. And then on top of that, and then in 1994, my dad got a transfer in his job, and we ended up moving back down to Massachusetts. And from that point on, stuff, I guess it was like a seasonal type thing, just on and off. It would just up a rise where sometimes, like, I'd wake up on some random day and I'd be like, you know what? I really want to look into the paranormal. Like, I mean, at the time, I wasn't even really familiar with the term paranormal. I was always just referring to it as ghosts. And, like the interest started building up. And then I came across with one of my old best friends back in the day. We came across an old website called shadowlands.com. I don't know if you're ever familiar with that site or anyone, but we came across it, and this was at this point, I think this was back in like the late 90s, like around roughly maybe 1999 or so, I think. And I just started going on the shadowlands.com, and like I'm looking up pictures of people claiming that they captured orbs and all that stuff, and like listening to very old grainy audio files, like very scratchy audio files of people claiming that like they think that they heard someone in their house, or someone saying like they're in like an old rickety house somewhere and they thought they heard someone talk in the background when there wasn't anyone there. I mean, back then it was just like, I mean, because back in that time it's like what could have really been real or not stuff. But then and then as time went on, so I think it was because when I was actually and it was also weird too, because in Massachusetts, before I moved to my current town where I'm in now of Gardner, Mass, I used to live in another town called Westminster, Massachusetts, and also
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I was there, and I don't know what it is. It still to this day it puzzles me, because as far as I know from what my dad told me, that house I think was built back in the 1960s or 70s. Never any records of any like no deaths in there as far as I know, nothing. But there was always one room in this house that I lived in for like 20 years or so. There's always one room that always gave off a weird energy, and it was my brother's old bedroom upstairs, because what it is, like, you would go upstairs, and then you would have to, in order to get to my brother's room, you would either have to go through my sister's room or you'd have to go through my room. Like, his room was unfortunately, it was attached to two bedrooms, so like it was way back there. So you'd have to go through one of each bedroom in order to get to his room, which was weird. But his room always had like a weird energy and stuff, and it's just like I remember like there were a lot of times, because back in the day too, like that's where we always had like our game consoles, like when the PS1 or even when it was the Sega Genesis, like when those were hot on the market at the time, and we always had our game consoles in that particular room. And there was this one closet that was in there, not a very big closet, but it was decent size. And there would just be nights where like my whole family would be downstairs playing video games, and I would just be up there. I mean, they would be downstairs watching TV, and I'd be upstairs playing video games. And all of a sudden, like, I get like a really weird feeling that there was something behind me, like something was like staring at me, or something was like standing foot high, like hovering over me or something. And I would look around me and stuff, and there was nothing ever there. And then and then there were times too where when I was really young, and like when we had moved to this house and stuff, I'd be sleeping in my room, and I'd get scared because it was getting really dark and stuff, and like I would just I'd go into my brother's room, and I'd just be like, can I stay in your room? I want to sleep in your room because I'm scared. And he'd be like, well, go get your sleep on the floor or something. So sometimes like I'd sleep on the floor next to my brother's room with my blanket and pillow, and like I wake up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden like I'd see like a really weird cloaked dark figure standing in the room, and it looks like it's like kind of like approaching me, coming at me and stuff. And I would do what any kid would do. It's like or just like put the covers over your head and stuff, I think. And I'm just like,
pretend it wasn't there, like somehow magically you put the sheets over your head and somehow magically just disappears, right?
Exactly. And I'm just like, oh my god. But like at that time though, like I was being slightly brave about it, because I'm just like, and the weird one is too, this one is a weird one, like I had an occasion where like I would have the covers go over me, and I closed my eyes, but yet in my conscious I could almost like see and visualize the ghost was, whatever this thing was actually still approaching me and stuff, and like it was like coming down like at me, and I'm just all like, I'm like, nope, like it's gonna go away. It's gonna like, but I could like visually see it in my mind of it coming at me, which I thought was really, really weird. But the one that actually really stuck out to me was and this one happened I think when I was about maybe 9 years old. I think I was sleeping in my room one night and I went to bed, completely forgot to close my closet doors, didn't even think about it.
And
And
this is
then
the same house?
same house, yep. And but this time, like it was, I was in my room, like I wasn't in my brother's room or anything. But same house, yep. And I was in my room, which I never experienced anything weird in there. But I remember I woke up one night, and also, by the way, I made a corny YouTube video based on this event.
Okay.
But I was, yep. And then I woke up, and I just remember looking at the foot of my bed, and I just remember seeing there was this very tall, well, not very tall, but there was a tall. It was a blue ghostly apparition of an old man, and he was wearing like a suit figure, like some kind of like suit outfit, and his outfit was like, it looked like it had been like all torn, ripped up and stuff, and he was blue, and his arms were out, like his arms were kind of out like this, coming at me as if like he wanted to either grab me or if he wanted to hug me. And I remember his head was kind of like fairly large too, which I thought was weird. And I just see this, I'm like, so again, under the covers, and I'm like trying to blink my eyes, and I'm just like, nope, I'm like, it's gonna go away, it's gonna go away. I'm like trying to like rub my eyes and stuff, and I'm like, so I come back up, and it's still there, but yet this time it's still closer to my bed.
Ugh.
And yep, and the problem is this figure, whatever this was, it was standing right next to my room light, so I couldn't get access to that.
So and fully, you see the whole thing like fully, like next to the light, right? Like everything's
yes. Because like my bed's right here, the light's right over here, and the figure's right here. So it's like it's blocking the pathway to get to my light. So I couldn't get to my light or anything. However, in my room, it was weird because the entrance door to my room, there was no door there. Like it was just like a wide open door, so anyone could have just walked into my room, for example.
Yeah.
But the hall light, the bulb for the hall light was on the ceiling directly above where the entrance to my room was. So what I did, I see that, and I'm just like, okay, crap, this thing is real. Like this thing is not going away. So I just, got out of my bed. I jolted right out of my bed, and I just remember running past this thing for like the split point of a second. I'm running past, and I can just see it. I'm looking up at it. I'm scared to death. But at the same time, like my legs are running, and I'm just like getting in there. I go to turn the hall light on. The thing is gone. I'm like, phew. And then my mom comes from out of her room, and she goes to the bathroom to get a drink of water. And she's like, wait, like she's basically yelling at me, like, what are you doing out of bed? And I'm like, I just saw a ghost in my room. And I'm just like, Mom, I just saw a ghost in my room. Okay, I just saw a ghost. And then my mom's all like yelling at me. She's like, go to bed, Bob, go to bed. I'm like, I can't because I just saw a ghost. She's like, go back to bed. You're scaring me. I'm like, I'm scaring you? I'm the one that just saw a freaking ghost in my room. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? And then, of course, like, the next morning and stuff, I kind of was investigating, like, my whole entire closet. Like, I was going in there and stuff, and I walked in there, I'm just, like, kind of, like, browsing and, like, kind of, like, feel for, like, if there's, like, a portal way or something that. I'm like, what could have caused that to happen stuff? And then, I mean, after that moment stuff, I remember, like, I called up some of my friends the next day, and, like, I told them what happened, and they all thought I was completely full of it. But, I mean, it's just, like.
How old were you?
What's that?
How old were you at this time?
I think I was about, I want to say I was like maybe 9, maybe 10, I want to say.
So your parents were probably still like, oh, this is imagination.
Probably. Imagination getting to his head and stuff, which, there's, in theory, they still could be right. Or in theory, on the other side, maybe I really did see a ghost. And then that's kind of funny too, because then I think of it going back to the other room, which my brother slept in. There was one night I remember and this made me feel like it wasn't just me. I was downstairs watching TV with my parents, and again, it was late at night. My 2 other brothers were upstairs, and they were playing on the Sega Genesis. And then later on in the night, they both at the same time came running downstairs, freaked out and afraid. And we're just like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And they both said that they claimed that they just saw a ghost in that room upstairs.
Did they describe it?
They never did, actually. You know what? They never did. They just both came downstairs, and they were both creeped out, and they just both claimed that they had seen a ghost in the corner of the room or something while they were playing Sega, but they never actually described what it was or how it even looked or anything. I never even really thought to even ask them what it looked like and stuff. I just was
watch them describe the exact same thing you did.
Oh my God.
Never know. I dare you go ask them today, and maybe they'll say maybe they'll remember it. And
actually, if I were to ask my brother, for example, if anything, he probably wouldn't even remember that, because he probably would be all like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "Come on, man! Like,
suppressed it.
Think back to that moment when you guys saw that ghost." And I'm like, but that was that too. And then I guess after that point, as I was getting older, that's really when, because, you know, like I was always like, sometimes my parents would have friends over and stuff, and sometimes it's one of those things where, like, you know, like it was my bedtime and I had to, you know, go to bed, and like sometimes I'd be upstairs bed, but I couldn't sleep, and I go to the top of the staircase, and I could sometimes hear my parents are talking to their friends, and they're talking about ghost stories, or they're talking about, like, you know, this house or that house had this go on, stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're
So
like, wait a minute, I was telling you that, Mom. I was telling you that.
yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, I'm over here, like I'm at the top of the stairs, and I'm listening to their conversations about like houses that, you know, were like, you know, like, oh, you know, so and so was at that house the other day, and, you know, she or he said that they experienced that stuff. I'm like, what? And then like I'd go to school the next day and hang out with my friends. I'd be like, guys, I ever heard my parents are talking about this one particular house or this one like event or stuff, and just like, and then that, yeah, I mean, and then after that point, I guess, like really when my parents were giving me more and more access to being able to use the internet and stuff, that's when I started going online, and like I was looking more and more up with paranormal situations, and even looking into like my first ghost hunting equipment and stuff like that. And which, by the way, my very first ghost hunting gear ended up being like a camcorder that had like one of like those old like DV cassette tapes or
Oh
something
Lord,
in there.
yeah.
You put in there, and the thing would take like 5 minutes to like wind up and stuff like that. And like it had like a cool screen that popped down the side, but the screen itself was like that big.
Yeah.
And it
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
black and white.
Early
Yeah.
2000s, right? Oh my gosh.
Early 2000s. Yep, it was. Oh my god.
So this thing happens to you, and how did you sleep in your room the next day?
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting, because someone else actually asked me that a long time
I
ago.
would have taken like a month away. I'm like, I won't be sleeping here for a whole month.
I guess I was like, I mean, as much as I was scared about this happening to me, I guess at the same time, like, not fully realizing it, but I guess I was like, whoa, like, gnarly, this just happened. Like, I just had a ghost encounter or something. And, but like, it just, I don't, maybe I probably just wasn't in tune to the idea yet. I'm just like, wow, like, do you realize what just happened? Like, I just freaking saw a ghost, but yet my brain's not wrapping around the idea, like, oh my God, I just saw a ghost. I'm not sleeping in there. I'm just like, I guess I was more like, you know, not without realizing. I'm like, yeah, I saw a ghost, but I'll sleep in there again and stuff. And just as long as the closet doors were closed and everything, I guess I was still perfectly fine. But then there were, after that though, there were some nights where I would sleep at night, and I really do think this was probably just my imagination playing with me, but I would wake up in the middle of the night, and again, like, you know, sometimes I used to hate it when either my mom or my brother would always turn the hall light out, because for a short amount of time, that was my only light that I was using, because my lamp light in my room was broken. So like I would go and turn the light on, go back to bed, and then eventually at some point during the night, one of them would go turn it out, and then I would wake up and I looked directly over at the my entrance. And like I would just always think that like I'm seeing like shadow figures or just like weird figures of anything or anyone. It would just be like coming into my room and stuff. And sometimes like I'd see them coming into my room, and as soon as they would come into my room, like they would just like start hovering up to like the ceiling and stuff, and like looking at me with weird looks. And I'm just like laying there in bed. I'm just like, I see it, but I can't react to this. I'm like, my body's not, like, my brain's not reacting to my body to tell me to, you know, get up and go turn the light on. I mean, not like none of these things like ever came face to face with me.
Right.
They would just be like, they're just like floating and stuff. And I'd just be like, they would just like stare at me. And I'm just like, yep, I'm like, I see it, but there's nothing I can do about it. I'm like, I see it. I'm just like, I just have to hope that I'm going to be okay or something. And
Yeah.
then
And then it dissipates, right?
they would eventually I mean, there were a couple of times here and there where I was able to get up at bed and I was able to run out into the hallway and turn the light on stuff, but there were half and half. Like, so there were times where I was, but then other times I wasn't. But yeah, for the most part, they did dissipate. But then, I mean, at least I hope they they dissipated. Like, I hope they didn't like actually like, you know, try to like actually come at me when I didn't see it happen or something. So
Let me ask you this.
sure.
Do you feel like the house was haunted, or were you haunted?
You know what? I actually see, because it's actually not so much if either I'm haunted or if the house haunted. Because one thing that I've actually learned over the years too about is that's when in recent years I came to learn more about the idea of portals, and I actually kind of figure, I'm like, you know, like, it wasn't me that was haunted. I mean, maybe not so much me that was haunted, but more the fact that I'm a highly more sensitive. So like I'm subjective to opening myself up more to these things and I'm seeing them. But I also think that like maybe it was in that one closet or that one space in my old brother's room. Perhaps maybe because the house itself was not haunted. Like the rest of the house was fine. Even the
It's happening
basement
in
was
this
fine.
specific area.
It was like this one specific area, and I like, if for anything, for all I know, maybe there was somehow like, or maybe it was even just like the land of that, like of the foundation or something, not even the house itself, but maybe there was like a portal that was in that one spot that was always making something come in and out and stuff. But like, the attic was fine. I used to go up to the attic a lot. I mean, the basement was fine. And I've even been in the basement like when the lights were completely out, and I would not even be scared down there, which is because that's very common for a lot of people. But I'm just like, yeah, maybe it was like, not so much that I'm haunted or the house, but yeah, either the fact that there's probably a portal in there, or also in collaboration with the idea that I'm also I'm a sensitive, because I've actually been told by mediums and psychics that I can be a bit of a sensitive when it comes to this stuff.
Maybe that's why they come at you. So
maybe
so you get your equipment, you get your first camera for this thing.
Oh yes.
Describe your first adventure, your first paranormal investigation. First off, were you by yourself? And if so, why are you so crazy? Or were you with a team? And what drove you to do it? What was the location? Give me all the details.
First paranormal occasion was very much so a fake one, because I was with a couple of friends of mine, and we were searching for something that was completely based on a movie. I remember, because again, I think it was back in the early 2000s, and I at this time too, like I wasn't getting into the idea of filmmaking yet, but I was actually being more and more introduced to the idea of video cameras. And I remember that's when it was like there was one night too, like I had some friends over one previous day, and at my old high school, one of them was in our media productions class, and I guess the school let him borrow one of their video cameras that they had. So he brought it home with him, and then him and a group of friends ended up bringing it to my house, and we're just like running around the house, and like we're just like filming ourselves with this one camera, just being nuts, being goofy and stuff. And like after that, like he just comes up to me and my friend, like he's filming me, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, wow, this thing is so cool. Like I want to get a video camera and stuff. And then later that day, after everyone left, my dad came home from work, and for like the rest of the night, I was bugging and irritating the crap out of my dad, because at the time, like I wasn't even like, I didn't research cameras. I just bring me to Walmart and let's go to the electrical department and just get me a camera or something. Eventually the next day I bugged my dad so much enough that he finally said, okay, the heck with it, let's go to Walmart. And he bought me my very first camera, the one I told you about with like with the cassette tape and stuff. And then I remember after that, at the time, Blair Witch Project was really a big thing.
I thought it was real when I was like 9.
I did too.
I thought it was real. I kid you not. And then I saw the VHS we rented had both the movie and like this extra content where they're talking about they're talking about the Blair Witch herself. So I thought this whole thing was like connected. Like, okay, they're talking about the Blair Witch, and then they're gonna show us the movie or the recording of them trying to find it. So in my head, I'm like, I didn't know this was found footage narrative. I thought it was like literally someone handed them the tape and this is the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was scared because I was like, this is real. But go on, sorry.
I mean, no, by all means. I mean, well, I mean, yeah, it's like no, you're right though too, because I was completely, stowed away by the fact that like I thought it was real too, because I remember like I had an old friend come over like the next day or something, and because my old house in Westminster, we had a lot of woods that were in our backyards, sure enough. And at the time, the fact that the Blair Witch Project was, was like one of the hot movies that was out there, and we ended up and also because it's cool because my old camera had like a little bit like a night vision mode on there.
Yeah.
It was a really crappy one, but it did work. And we would go running late at night. We go running off into the woods late at night, dark. And sure, we're a little scared and stuff, but at the same time, like, the adrenaline was taking over us. So the adrenaline was all like, the hell with it. Like, if we're scared, let's just go. We went out there and we just being, the goofy, corny, weirdo little kids that we were at the time. We went off into my woods with my camera, and we actually were under like the believable idea of thinking like, hey, maybe the Blair Witch could be in our backyard. Like, maybe the Blair Witch could be in our backwoods. So we ended up like, because about maybe, I would say about almost half a mile or so, like that was out in back my woods. There was an old tree fort that I remember some of the local neighbor kids used to work on way back in the day. They never finished it, but we ended up going all the way out to this tree fort, and we climbed up into the tree fort and stuff, and we had the camera. We would be using the flashlight to like shine around like, the woods around us and stuff. And I had my camera like, and I'm filming it. I'm just like, documenting ourselves and like, all right, guys, here we are, like we're in the backwoods, and we are hunting for like, the truth of the Blair Witch. Like, is she real? are we gonna find her and stuff? And it's just
Like she would just happen to be in your backyard.
Yeah, because considering the fact that the events of this happened in Maryland, I guess,
Yeah.
and the fact that like she just decides to come up to Westminster, Massachusetts, and
Yeah.
hunt two young boys like that are.
So we can
out in
prove
the
today
woods.
if she exists or not.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah, we did that and stuff. And then I guess what happened was, I think if I remember this correctly, we the next day, because my friend was sleeping over for 2 days at my house, and we ended up doing the same thing. Come to find out, then the next day, my older brother, being annoying and irritating at the time, was going out in the woods, and he started terrorizing us, making us really think that there was something out there, not exactly Blair Witch, but that something was actually indeed out in the woods terrorizing us. Come to find out that it was my brother at the time, and like he was being annoying, and like he wanted to just like try to give us a good scare and stuff. And it's like I'd be filming and stuff. My brother would be like, "Dude, like what was that? Like what was that?" I'm like, "What?" It's like something's over there, like brushing in the bush or something. I'm just like, I'm like, okay, maybe we should cut this and we should make our way back to the house and stuff. And then so it's like, but then
That's how funny paranormal investigations can be, because like you want something to happen, and then when it happens, it's like, okay, guys, let's not go on further. Let's cut it.
well, I
Like
think
you get what you asked for. You get what you asked for, and you're like, oh shoot, maybe I shouldn't have asked for this.
Well, I guess maybe at that, because the fact that we were so young and vulnerable at this
Yeah.
age too. So it's like, because now like in my older age, like I'm more wise, at least I think I am, and like I'm more like I'm more guarded by the fact and stuff, because like I've done investigations where even in today's world where I've seen stuff and other people are like, let's just go. I'm like, no, we have to get this, guys. We have to document this. But yeah, back then it was just like, maybe we really should get back to the house and play it safe. And I mean, yeah, and then from that point on, stuff like that's when I looked more into Blair Witch, and then years later I found out that the whole thing was actually fake. But then like I also was like me and another friend, an old friend of mine, his name was Brandon, I remember, and we would go online stuff like after school, and like we go onto like all these different websites again and trying to looking at pictures of like orbs and stuff, or looking at pictures who claim that people thought that they captured something, and then I guess eventually the idea spurred where I'm just like, hey, I'm like, there's got to be haunted places around here. I'm like, we gotta check out what we got going on here.
Yeah. So check this out. Of course, TV shows, they have to ham it up a little bit. They have to make it Hollywood. Right?
Oh, yes, of course.
So I still like them. I still like Ghost Adventures and all this other stuff, but I mean, I know that it's a production. Like they have, whatever you want to say about it. I mean, I can't confirm or deny if anything's faked or or anything's real. But regardless, it's entertaining. I like it. What was your first professional investigation like? Did you have expectations because of television shows, or did maybe you went in and it's like, okay, this is scarier, a lot scarier than I expected? And where was it? Where was this? What was your first real, as an adult human being? What was your first actual investigation?
Oh my God. I would have to say, if I can, I have one I'm thinking about, but I'm trying to see if I can remember the past before that. Oh God, I don't know if I get. The one that comes to my memory is, yeah, I guess I'll have to say this one then, because I can't think of any of that before that. I'm sure there might be, but I think there's one where I used to work in a grocery store job called Stop and Shop, and there was a lady that used to work in my store, and her name was Nicole, and she's also originally from California too, but she's living in this area, and she lived in like this it was a really cool, but it's like a weird, like kind of like just old rickety house that was like kind of like out in the middle of nowhere. But she had like a whole family that lived there and everything and stuff too. And like I used to like go to campfires with her and stuff, and we used to hang out and whatnot. And then I guess apparently she came up to me one day at work, and she said that she thinks that something weird has been going on around her house, and she thinks that the claim that it's the father, her late father-in-law. So she thinks might have been him, like, messing around and stuff. So she came up to me and she's like, can you, like, do an overnight investigation of my house? And I think this was actually not, I think this might have been back in 2012, I want to say. But,
and was this one of those?
Oh, no, wait.
Okay.
Scratch that. It just came to me. First paranormal investigation, actually, 2010, Gettysburg.
Oh, you were getting us going too. It's like, I want to find out about Nicole's house, and you're like, wait a minute, let me go back to Gettysburg instead.
Sorry, I mean, I can still talk about that one.
Well, let's go both. So Nicole's house, was it just like on TV, the lights out thing? I'll see you at 5 a.m. at sunrise kind of thing.
I guess, yeah, something like that, because they, like the whole entire family ended up, they all packed up and they went to go spend the night at another friend's house or something. And it was me there, and I was also there with another coworker. They were not at all like interested like in the paranormal, but they just wanted to be there, I guess, just to be there to experience and stuff. So while like they were sitting in the living room for like pretty much the whole night, and like, and
How
I'm
many
the
of you
one,
guys? 3?
it was just two of us. It
Oh,
was
2.
just
Okay.
it was just me and another a former coworker of mine, and yep. And while they were in the other room just like sitting there like pretty much the whole entire night, and like I'm the one, I mean, it was a fairly small house, so like there wasn't like a whole lot to go and explore, but like I was like going around the whole house. I had my old EMF detector. I had my old what else I have? I had the EMF detector. I had a just like an old digital voice recorder and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like obviously and at the time I had my slightly more advanced still it was like a video cassette tape kind of camera, but more advanced. And I had that going around like filming the house stuff. And yeah, completely lights out. I locked all the doors and everything and stuff. And I go from like the top from the attic all the way down to the basement and stuff. And then of course, like my friend, like I'd be like in one room, and then my friend in the living room would be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" and stuff. And I'd be like, "Yep, I'm fine. I'm like, if you want to join me, by all means, like come into this room with me." No, I'm fine here and stuff. So it kind of puzzles me like why they wanted to come with me if they didn't even want to like explore the rooms with me. But either way, I mean, pretty much throughout the course of that whole entire night, yeah, I mean, even though there were times where like I thought I picked up on weird sounds here and there, but I was actually able to debunk things, because at one point, like I thought like I heard like a weird like kind of like a scraping sound on like on one of her daughter's windows. And it come to find out that it was just a stupid tree branch that was kind of like tapping against the window. And I'm like, damn. But
I wanted something to happen. If I was the coworker, I'd be the opposite. I'd be like, yo, let me hang out with you, because if something happens, I'd rather be with somebody else while it happens rather than me chilling in the living room by myself and something happening to me and no one's there. So
exactly.
I would have gone with you.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying too, because that's why I'm just like, come on, like, like the whole entire night, they just wanted to stay in the living room. I mean, they were obviously there just to be there and stuff, but yeah, exactly what you just said. I mean, yeah, definitely. And then, come to find out that I guess, and then eventually like, yeah, 5 or 6 a.m. started to roll around and stuff, and the sun started to come up, and, like I'm getting tired, I'm getting exhausted, and then I'm just like wrapping up the investigation, I'm finishing up. And then, I bring all my, I met up with her after like I was coming back out, and she's like, how'd the night go? And I'm like, it was actually a fairly quiet night. I mean, like I did hear some weird, like, I thought I heard weird sounds throughout the whole course of the night, but I was pretty much able to debunk everything that I was hearing. So I went home. I had some videotapes that I looked over. Like I went over all my audio recordings, and there was one audio I think I remember where like I couldn't tell if it was weird or not, but I ended up I just dismissed it overall, because like I listened to it, and like I was using certain editing like audio software at the time to try to like clean it up a bit, but I don't think it was anything. But it just, that investigation, nothing happened. The whole night was quiet and stuff. However, come to find out, 2 days later, I go to work one day, and a lady comes up to me, and she says that weird stuff has been happening around the house again. Because, for example, they had an old tool shed that was right next to the house, and her husband, oh God, I totally forgot his name, but Tim. Tim was in the tool shed, and like it's one of those things where like you have a tool that's on the counter, he goes to turn around and do something, and he turns around again, and it's completely gone. And he's like, what the heck? But then like he goes this way again to try and see if he can find it, comes back over, and there it is, right there.
Whoa.
So it's like stuff like she said like that.
I would have noped out of there in a heartbeat. I'd be like, nope, I'm done.
And like she's telling me, she's like, weird stuff is happening. And at the time, I remember I felt so bad about it, because I'm just like, I hope I didn't trigger it. Like, I hope, because I was there, doing a paranormal investigation, I hope I didn't trigger something to happen. But she was like, she said it was completely fine, because like they were not feeling any hostile, like no bad vibes or no negative energy. And she's like, I think it's the ghost of Tim's dad. Like he's here just like, playing around with us, and like he's like just trying to fool around with us and stuff.
Yeah, at least it wasn't malignant.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, so as long as it's like nothing that's like bad. And she's like, oh no, it's like, but and then I guess after that, like she's had a few things happen here and there and stuff, but then after those occurrences, it's been completely quiet since I guess from that point on. So I'm just like, okay,
well, it was a phase.
I just hope I didn't start something. I hope I didn't stir something up, because I was being professional too. Like one of my things when I go on investigations is I never provoke. Like I never be like, okay, well if you're here, then show yourself. Like I don't do any of that stuff. I'm always like very careful. But going back to the Gettysburg one now too, because that one was actually really cool, because back in 2010, I was with my dad, and we drove all the way down. We just wanted to take a vacation or a trip, so we ended up going all the way down to Washington, D.C. for the heck of it. because I hadn't been there in a long, long time. So we go down there and stuff, and we stay our visit, and then we're coming back up, and we stopped in West Virginia, which, by the way, from as far as my travels, I have met, like, West Virginia is where I've met so far some of the nicest people. But so I went up there through there and stuff. That was really awesome. And then my dad was like, hey, because I have an uncle who lives in Pennsylvania, and my uncle John, my dad's oldest brother, and my dad was like, you want to go up to Pennsylvania? Like, we'll go see Uncle John, and, like, he's not too far from Gettysburg. I'm like,
Yeah.
Are we gonna go to Gettysburg? He's like, yeah, let's go to Gettysburg. I'm like, heck, let's go to Gettysburg. So we drove all the way up to Pennsylvania. We go to Gettysburg, and we ended up staying 2 nights there. And the first night that we were there, I ended up I signed up and I joined some like little ridiculous. It was a Gettysburg National
Ghost tour.
Paranormal Association group or something like that. And it was like, it just consisted, it was like 3 guys and a girl or something, I think. And so we all had to, like, get in our cars, because they had, like, this one house that was in an open field that was in the middle of nowhere that's where, like, they set the investigation. So we all had to get in our cars, and we all followed each other, and we all drove out to this one house, and like we all, again, we had our cameras with us, we had EVP recorders, we had EMF detectors, and then they also this is when I was introduced to this for the first time. It's I forgot what they're called, but, like, they're like these weird rod things that you have. It's like
they're dowsers, right?
Dowsing rods. Yep.
Dowsing rods.
Yep, I was introduced to those for the first time ever back in 2010. And so we get into this house and stuff, and we all split up into, like, 3 groups. Just whoever, like, some would go upstairs, others would stay on the level, like, living room floor, and then some of us were, like, would go into the basement and stuff. And I was with this one family that was from the very, like, southern part of Alabama, and, like, just talking with that very awesome southern. I love the southern accent. So, like, I'm hanging out with this Alabama family, and it's like, and at one point I remember and we also, because, like, I had an EMF detector, I had my EVP, and, like, they're doing the dowsing rods over here, and I'm over here, like, getting some readings and stuff. And on the EVP detection, I actually picked up a name being said. Like, I don't know who it is, but I picked up the name. I'll actually spell it. I think this is what I found. It said Weinberg. It was very clear too. Like, I heard someone whisper, and they said Weinberg. I heard that, and I'm like, what the heck?
Maybe it's a general or some type of soldier.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, is Weinberg, is that the last name of a soldier who fought in the Civil War? Yeah. Or maybe is it the name of someone who lived in the house that we were in and stuff? But when I heard it on the audio, it was so clear. Like, I'm just, like, listening, and I'm like, Weinberg. I'm like, wait a minute, what was that? So, like, I had to, like, rewind my audio recording. I'm just like, it's like, Weinberg. I'm like, oh my God, I caught an EVP. I'm like, that is so cool.
Like,
and I'm like,
cross that off my list, my first EVP.
Right?
Yo, when you said you're about to spell it out, I was like, oh God, hopefully he's not spelling out a demon's name. Like, he doesn't want to say.
No.
I was like, because you don't want to say it out loud, and then so you're like, let me type it for you.
Oh yeah, no, I would never do that. I would never open up any portal to that. But then, of course, later on that night too, this one, even still to this day, it's hard to depict on, because I've even still seen the video on one of my older YouTube channels. But at one point before the investigation ended, it was like we all had, like, regrouped and stuff, and we were all, like, filming it. Like, we just, like, there's this one room where they didn't, like, the lead investigators, they didn't want us to go into this room, but we were able to, like, go up to the doorway and, like, have our camera and, like, scope it out and stuff. And at one point, like, I had my camera scoping, and, like, I'm moving it like this very slowly. Someone had a flashlight on one of their old disposable cameras or something. They took a flash of it, but then, like, a very, very second after the flash goes away, you see another light or, like, something in the room goes off to the side too. So I end up going there, like, I looked into that stuff, and I'm like, that looks like the ghost of a little girl, if I'm not mistaken. Like, like a little girl dressed up in, like, a dress or something. Like someone takes, exposes their camera, the flash goes off, and then once the flash goes off, I see this, like, other, like, just weird form of light just, like, goes right off to the side. And I'm like, that, I don't think that has to do, like, with the flashlight on that lady's camera and stuff too. And
yo, send it to me. I want to see it. Do you still have it or no?
I actually might still have it. I think it's on one of my older YouTube channels, actually.
Cool.
I'll
definitely check out your YouTube channel. Yeah. So I got to ask you.
Yeah.
All your investigations, I guess 2-parter. What has been your most fulfilling one as a fan of the paranormal? Like, so it's like, okay, now, like, as a fan, like, I'm really loving this experience. But also, what was your scariest experience, and where was it? Of course, what happened too? What happened?
Of course. My most fan-filled experience was I forgot what the year was. It was not too long ago, but out in here in because I'm in Florida right now, but up in Massachusetts, out near Boston Harbor, there's a very old naval Navy warship. Or, yeah, not warship, but there's like an old naval ship. And, phone ringing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so like an old Navy battleship that's can you hear me?
Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. So there's an old naval battleship that's it's called the USS Salem. I think it's stationed out in near Quincy, Massachusetts, and it's apparently, from what I heard about the ship, is that it sailed and was out in the Atlantic during World War II, but I don't think it never saw any action, like no war or no battles or anything like that. But I guess this ship is very, very haunted, and yes, it is, because I actually I'm friends with another guy named Derek, and he's kind of like a partner of mine when it comes to paranormal investigations. We've been on some investigations together, and he ended up meeting a team and he became part of a team for a while that did a lot of investigations on this ship. So one night, I was invited to go out to to take part on this ship, and I remember at the time, I think there was like a college group from North Carolina, if I remember correctly, that came up. They're part of like some paranormal college group or something. So they came up to the ship too, and they wanted to be a part of an investigation. And so like our team, the team that I was with at the time, we helped to guide them on like a tour of the ship and stuff. And
Interesting.
To do like an overnight investigation of the ship. So there are parts of the times the ships, there are times in the day where we would like all split up and stuff, and we had our HQ or headquarters set up at one point, and there was a time during the night, like past hours, where Derek and we ended up bringing 4 of the people with us, and we ended up going to much more lower decks of the ship, and it got creepy down there, because like the lower and lower you got and stuff, and the more it just felt like the more narrow like the hallways became and stuff and everything, and it was just getting really dark. And and we also had one of the ghost guys we had was it's one of those devices where like you hit a button and like it shoots a laser beam of all these dots that are supposed like on the wall or something. So if like a shadow figure walks by, it will interrupt the dots. So we had one of those, and we're in the lower decks of the ship. And at one point, we went into like a room which looked like a bunker, like a sleeping room or something. And all 4 of us were in there, like we're just like checking out like the spots where like some of the sailors were like sleeping stuff. And then at one point, I guess it was like 2 or 3 of the college kids went out back to the hallway, and they looked back at us and they're like, "Rob, Derek," they're like, "What? Like, guys, come here, check this out." I'm like, "Well, like tell me you don't see this. Tell me you don't see this." And we all go back out. We look down the hallway. He's like, "Look at that! Like, look down there." And like I'm looking down this hallway, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" Oh, like, dude, Derek, do you see that? He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, we like legit saw an apparition of a man. Like he looked like an old Navy sailor man. Like he was shirtless, but like he had pants on and stuff. And he was walking back and forth, like all the way down to like the other end of this hallway. Like you could see it clear as day, and like you could just really, it was so vivid. It was like an old sailor man just like standing there doing some kind of motion. And like the college kids, they didn't want to get any closer. They wanted to stay right where they were. But Derek and I, we ended up getting closer. We're getting closer. And at the closer we got, it almost looked like as if like he was doing like a sweeping or like a clean, like a mopping motion or something. And then like it looked like he was doing the motions of like where like he's putting the mop up against the wall, and then he walks away. He comes back, and then again he does a motion where like he's mopping against stuff. And I'm just like, "Derek, do you see this?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." Like, so we got on the walkie-talkie, and we radio back to HQ, like, "Okay guys, like we're getting we got shadow figures out here. Like we have like a full apparition of what appears to be like an old sailor, like sailor person that's like."
Do you think it was residual, or was it like spirit?
I think it might have been residual.
Okay.
I definitely think it was definitely a residual haunt for sure and stuff. I think it was but yeah, we saw that and stuff, and then we ended up going back up to the HQ, because like they did have some cameras that were stationed around for like the part of the ship and stuff, but unfortunately they didn't capture anything on camera that could have indicated a sailor person. But then on top of that, and then like and then after that, like we all regrouped back at HQ. We went back down again, and again we saw, and definitely I think it definitely was residual, because like when we went back down to the hallways again, we did see more shadow people, like more sailors and stuff. And then at one point we're walking down the hallway, we heard what sounded like a light flicking on, and we all of a sudden a light beam from like another room or something. We're walking down there, and we heard someone whistling in there, like someone like was whistling a tune or something. We're like, "Oh my God, you guys hear that?" But then as we got closer and closer to that doorway, the light flicked off, and then like the whistling completely went away. And we're walking down, and like I guess there was like another like little window onto the side. We're walking, and all of a sudden one of the college guys that was with us completely freaks out. He's just like, "Oh my God, oh my God." I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? What's wrong? And he's just like, I just saw a guy right there. There was a guy right there. He just appeared out of nowhere. I'm like, where? It's like this window right here. I'm like, and like we looked in, and it was like a little cafeteria area. It was like a little door. It was like a little window way that goes into a cafeteria of some sort. But he's like, apparently he claims that he saw like a figure of a man just like pop out of nowhere, like right there for like a second, just like staring at him, and like he completely lost it. Like, oh my God, like this guy like literally did look like he had just seen a ghost or something, and like, he was freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, are you okay though? He's
So
like,
that one was probably like a what's the terminology for that? Like there's residual hunting, but then
and then there's also
the
an intelligent hunt too.
intelligent hunting. Yeah.
Yep.
So he thinks it was that particular ghost was intelligent.
That one actually might be a tough call. I'm actually not really. I mean, it's possible that one might have been intelligent because they probably knew of our presence, probably knew that we were there and stuff. But it's like, I mean, he just completely like freaked out and stuff. And like, I'm like, are you all right? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, what did you see? And that's when he told me about how he saw like the whole like thing appear right there. But we just kept going down the hallway and stuff. But it definitely was residual because I felt like the more farther down we got, we were seeing shadow figures everywhere. Like we're seeing like apparitions of ghosts, like sailor guys everywhere and stuff. So, but then like the night was starting to progress on, and we all like again regrouped at headquarters and stuff. And it was just, but like those shadow figures, oh my God, like they were so vivid. Like you could really see them. Like you could tell that like it was a guy without a shirt on, like wearing pants and like doing like a sweeping mopping mode, like as if like he's cleaning the decks or something. I'm like, it was just like, oh my, just thinking about it right now is blowing my mind.
Did he have an actual mop, or just the motion of him?
I didn't say like I just saw the motion, like his arms were doing this, so like I just saw him doing the motions of like as if he was like mopping or sweeping or something. But then like a couple times Derek and we tried to approach him closer and closer, and like Derek, because he's slightly shorter than me. He's older than me, but he's shorter than me. So like I'd be like overlooking him, and like I had my hand on his back to show that indicate like, hey, like I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you.
Yeah. Like, don't worry, if anything happens,
I'm like, I got
right
your
here.
back. And he's walking, and I'm walking. And I'm like, come on, like let's not. We weren't gonna try to do like Ghostbusters. We're like 1, 2, 3, get her. We weren't gonna do it like that, but it's like we're like walking, but then eventually the closer we got to it, it eventually just like it would disappear. So it's like it did.
How close did you get to it? What was the closest you got to it?
I would say we were maybe within. I want to say about. God, I want to say we were probably within about maybe 30, maybe 40 feet of it or something.
Still pretty ballsy.
So yeah, I would still say so. I mean, we were pretty close, but within still reasonable distance. But I think it got to the point where like it just eventually I guess the energy around this caused it to like fade away or just disappear or something like that. But oh my God, like that. And then after that, like I've been to that. I've been to that ship, a few other times after that, and it's still like same things too. Where like I go on the ship, and I even heard stories about like how like sometimes like maintenance guys would come onto the ship like early in the morning to do cleaning. And I guess one guy told a story about how like he looked up one day and he saw what appeared to be like a sailor dressing man who was in like a lookout tower or something, and like I guess the access to that lookout tower was completely closed off. So how could he have gotten up there?
Yeah.
And he said it was like that one apparently was a long time ago, but he's like, I heard the story about how, somebody was witnessing a lookout tower. But that ship though, like, I hope someday that I can get back on that ship, because that place, like for paranormal energy and paranormal investigating, that place is a major hotspot. And
what's the ship called again?
I think it's called the USS Salem. And I think
Salem, okay.
Yeah, like as in like Salem, like the Salem Witch Trial, Salem, Massachusetts. So I think and I do think that they do actually they have ghost tours to the public. I mean, this was many years ago when I went there. So, I mean, if, anyone's interested, that's within this area, I'm sure maybe if you call them or something, go get a ghost tour on the USS Haunted Salem.
So was that your most favorite one, or is it the scariest one?
I would have to say that was probably my favorite one, because I think that's the one where I had actually was able to see a ghost up close without the use of any technology really whatsoever. Like I was able to see this with
your own eyes,
my own eyes. I saw this and I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, are you guys seeing this? I'm like, yep, we're seeing that. So that was my favorite one. I would have to say the scary one, which is the one that I was on TV for. It's so in my town of Garner, there's an old haunted Victorian mansion that's not too far from where I live, and it's called the S.K. Pierce Haunted Victorian Mansion.
S.A.
What's that?
S.A.
S.K.
S.K. Sorry.
Yep, I can actually just write S.K. Yep, S.K. Pierce. So, and again, this one also goes back with Derek and I, because Derek and I used to work at a Stop and Shop supermarket for a few years together and stuff. And he eventually he was introduced to a guy who eventually ended up passing away, but he introduced us to a guy. His name was Bill Wallace, and he kind of looked like Santa Claus, because he was that guy, like he had like really long curly white hair, and he had like a really long beard and mustache, which almost kind of made him look like Santa Claus in a way. But he was a really, really cool guy. And I miss him and stuff too. But I guess because at the Victorian Mansion, there's a hotel that's right across the street. And I guess one day this guy was sitting there, and he said apparently he picked up on like a sensor, like something came to his mind, and he ended up, for the first time ever, without even knowing them, like he walked up to the front door and he knocked on the door and he introduced himself to the homeowners at the time. Their names were Edwin and Lillian Gonzalez, fantastic people. And he ended up walking into the house, and he said like he could send some spirits in there. And then I guess he was friends with Derek, and then Derek was relaying all this back to me. And then I guess Derek was like, hey, like we should go up to the Victorian Mansion because we're being invited up there and stuff. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I used to drive by this house all the time with my dad, and I've always wanted to know what was in it, because it legit looks like a creepy haunted house from the outside. So of all the years come and gone, so I finally get the opportunity to go up there. And I would say for about the length of maybe like a good year or something, it happened where Derek and I would work nights together, and we would get out of work at 9 o'clock, and we would, drive I'd take him, and we'd both go up to the Victorian Mansion, and we meet up with Edwin and Lillian, and we'd all hang out, because like the house was huge. Like it was just them. Like they had no kids or nothing. It was just them. So the house was huge, and we would always hang out in the kitchen, because the kitchen was always where like the least paranormal activity would occur, like little to none at all. Like there was never like any paranormal activity in there. So we would always hang out in the kitchen. Lily would sometimes be nice enough to make us dinner and stuff. So like we always hang out in there. And this place, by the way, too, like you get lost with time, because it would be like 12 midnight would strike, and then I'd be like, all right, guys, like I'm kind of getting tired. I want to go home and I want to go to sleep. But then before you know it, it's like already almost 5 a.m. So like time gets away from you at this house big time. So there was one particular night where, and every once in a while, after midnight, we'd be hanging out in the house and stuff. And, like, I don't know if it would be tiredness and fatigue that'd be kicking in, but sometimes like we'd be hearing like weird sounds in the house, like weird tapping sounds or footsteps. And sometimes Edwin would be like, all right, Derek, Bob, you guys, like, I don't want to go see it. Like, you guys go check out what's going on and stuff. I'm like, okay. So every so often we go check it out. And one particular night, we were all hanging out in the kitchen. I think it might have been, probably about maybe 2:30 a.m. or something. And we're all hanging out, and like we just finished up like eating and stuff that Lillian gave us for food, and all of a sudden like we thought we heard some weird sounds coming from upstairs, but we didn't think anything of it, so we're like, it's probably nothing, so we just kind of like brushed it off. And then I guess at that point too, Derek had to use the bathroom, and there was 2 bathrooms that were in the house, one on the first floor and one on the second floor, but the one on the first floor wasn't working, so we had to go to the second floor. So yeah, sure enough,
Can you come with me? I don't want to go upstairs.
Yeah, conveniently enough, yeah. So Derek's like, all right, Bob, I have to go use the bathroom upstairs. So he's like, come with me. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, all right, Edwin, Lillian, we'll be right back. So, we're walking through the main lobby, the hallway floor on the first floor. We walk up the creepy staircases. We go all the way up to the second floor. And even the second floor, it kind of has like an open area that would maybe look like kind of like a lobby or something. Okay. So we go in there.
It's a big mansion.
It was. It was actually, it's a pretty decent, like they're actually, right now they're trying to turn it into a bed and breakfast. But so like we go up there and stuff, and Derek's in the bathroom. And like, so the bathroom is right here. And then right next to the bathroom, there was like another kind of like it's like a short, narrow hallway that leads right up to like a weird, like big window or something. And then right next to that is like another regular sized doorway that leads up to the 3rd floor, which is also technically the attic floor, but it also is the 3rd floor in a way. So I'm standing in front of that door. Like I'm just, standing there. Derek's in the bathroom doing his thing. And I'm just like, I'm just chilling out and stuff. And I'm just doing, hanging out there. And all of a sudden, like in my mind, I could almost feel like I could sense that there was a spirit that was hanging out upstairs on the 3rd floor, minding their own business, not doing anything and stuff. So I'm just like, oh, I'm like, someone's here apparently, but nothing of it. So, and then all of a sudden my attention was drawn to that hallway. I'm looking down that hallway where that creepy window is. And I'm like, okay, like something is like really weird here, because all of a sudden, like I couldn't see her, but in my mind, like I'm starting to now pick up the imagery that there was a lady from the Victorian era, and she's like, you know, she's in like a big Victorian outfit, dress or something. She's standing at the window, and like her arms like are crossed, like her arms like are crossed by her waist and stuff. And you know, I'm just standing there, and like I'm looking down this hallway, and I could almost feel the energy as if like she's like slowly hovering towards me, like she's like very slowly just her energy is being drawn to me, coming and coming. And the scary part was after that, I think what happened, I think it happened before Derek came out of the bathroom, where there was a curtain that was hanging up, like what that kind of like that was hanging up between the bathroom and open where I am, and I didn't register at the time, but I saw the curtain move by itself. Like the curtain moved, indicating that something was probably indeed coming. And then just like that, like I just like was just something was coming more at me. I could feel it, but I was laying my guard down, like I wasn't doing anything and stuff. And then Derek comes out of the bathroom, and you know I'm still myself, and he comes up to me. He's like, "Oh man," it's like, "Ooh," he's like, "It's kind of feels weird up here, don't you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think it does." And then at which that point, Derek and I turned around, and that cloth curtain again, we both saw it move again, like the thing like moved as if like someone went to like, you know, move it up like that or something. We saw that, and we're like, "Oh my god!" And all of a sudden, I'm just like, wow. He's like, "What's up?" And like there was a chair that was on the other side of the room. He's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, I think I have to sit down or something. So I'd go on the other side, and like I'm sitting down, and like I'm just all like, oh, by the way, I wasn't in the hospital or anything.
Are you good?
Okay, just if anybody gets confused about that, I was at the hospital. I was at an attraction yesterday. But I'm like, so I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I'm sitting in this one chair. I'm losing my focus, and I'm just like not sure what's going on. And then eventually, Edwin comes upstairs. Him and Derek come over to me, and I am fully conscious of everything going on around me, but I can't react to any of it and stuff. And Edwin comes up to me, and he's like, "Is Bob okay?" And we're like, and Derek's like, "I don't know." And I'm just like, oh god, like, oh man, it's like, I don't know. Like, and like they said that I was mumbling my words, like I wasn't like spitting out like clear words and stuff like that. And then like we're just hanging out there for a while, and they're just like, and you know, I could just remember like opening my eyes, and even though I couldn't react to it, but like Derek and Evan are just, you know, they're walking around the area, and I didn't know if like they were investigating or whatnot and stuff. And then eventually I heard them say, "Okay, well maybe we better help Bob get downstairs or something." So, and I'm just like, like, all right, Bob, like, come on, like, okay. So like they're lifting me up and stuff, like they're helping me get up, and like, you know, they're helping me, walking me over to the staircase. And I literally had to grab onto the railing of the staircase, and like I literally had to like climb my way down. And I'm just like I'm short of breath, and I'm just like, oh man, like what's going on? I'm just like, I'm conscious, and I just don't know what's going on around me, but at the same time I did. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm working my way downstairs, and I'm just like, I'm going down, I'm climbing down the staircase, I'm going down, and eventually I get to the very bottom of the staircase, and I just sit there, and like I just like, you know, my knees are up almost like above my waist, and I'm just like, and they're like, they come over to me and they're like, "Bob, are you okay?" And I'm just like, what's, and like they just, I could hear them talking, but like I just couldn't make out what was going on. And then Lillian comes over to me, and she starts rubbing my back. She's like, "Dear, are you okay, honey? Are you okay? Are you okay? What's wrong?" And then within a matter of like minutes, I'm just like, oh, wow. What happened? Like,
how did I get here? How did I get from
exactly? And like they're like, do you have do you know what just happened to you? And I'm just like, well, I mean, I know that you guys just apparently had to help me down the staircases or something. I mean, I think I'm just completely out of it. They're like, you were really out of it. Like you were, like we couldn't get straight answers out of you. Like you were mumbling your words, dude. Like, are you okay? And I'm just like, I think so. I'm fine. And like I get up, and you know, like I'm able to walk around, and like I'm breathing normally and everything. I'm like, yeah, I feel great and stuff. And then what was weird though is after that, nothing happened to Lillian right away. But then as the night was progressing on, she like every time when she was talking to me, she kept on looking over my shoulder as if like something was there behind me and stuff. And like she'd be like talking to me like, "Oh yeah, by the way," I'm like, "What? What?" She's like, "All right, just stay over there, okay?" And I'm like, "What? Why? What's wrong?" And like eventually at first I thought she was kidding. I thought she was joking and stuff. But then as Lillian came over and I wanted to try talking to her more, she just kept on looking constantly over my shoulder, like as if like she was seeing something there. And I'm just like, Lillian, I'm like, okay, like now you're starting to freak me out. Like now you're starting to scare me a bit. Like, I mean, is there someone behind me? And like there were times where like she was doing it, but then there were times where, like she was doing it with like a smile on her face. So she'd be like, well, I'm just like, okay, like, guys, I'm like legit freaked out. Like, do you see is there something behind me? Like, is there some ghost behind me or something? But then like, and for the rest of the night, she was doing like, she just like kept looking over my shoulder, and I'm just like getting purely freaked out. I'm just like, what are you looking at? And
Yeah.
like, I would try to get closer to her and stuff. She'd be like, don't come any more closer to me. Don't come any more closer to me. And I'm just like, I'm not. I'm right here. I'm right here. Like, and she's like, okay, well, I just want to make sure. And I'm like, well, why are you smiling then? Like, what? Like, why? What's going on? And then the night went on and stuff, and then eventually got to the point where Derek and I had to go, and we ended up leaving. And then come to find out a couple of days later, we get a call from Edwin saying that Lillian is she's on the couch right now, and she's all like draped up in a blanket and stuff apparently, and she's not herself or whatever. And like, I guess like something has kind of like has consumed her, something has gone into her and has taken over her. Only it's weird because when they would leave the house, she would be completely normal. She would be completely like she's all there, like normal and stuff. But then when she come back to the house, it's like again she would be a completely different person. Something is consuming her. Something is taking full control of her. It's changing her attitude. It's changing her behavior, especially around Edwin, because like he'd go up to her and he'd be like, I love you and stuff, and she would just be all like, yeah. So it's just like what the heck is going on stuff. And then eventually I guess as a little bit of time eventually went on, it got to the point where Edwin couldn't stand to see what was happening to Lillian, because it was breaking him apart. So like if I had my history right on this, I could be wrong, but if I'm right on this, they eventually they had to move out of the house because the paranormal curses were getting too strong and stuff. And then eventually I had a medium or psychic lady who I know and I trust her. She came and did a reading on me, and apparently I guess the story that I heard back then was that a lady from the Victorian era, she saw me, and I guess I had let my guard down, and she ended up getting into me using my body as a vessel or something in order to get into Lillian, because she knew she was dead, but she didn't want to be dead, so she had to try to use her energy to take over someone else's body. So it's like she got into me because I guess she knew that I would eventually go to Lillian. So she used me as like a transportation in a way. And then
crazy.
And then when Lillian touched my shoulder like that, perhaps whatever was in me went right into her. And then that's when all of a sudden I regained full consciousness, and I was just like, whoa, like what happened and stuff too. And I'm just like, what really happened? And then after that, after that, I go back to the house and I go up to that staircase again, and I go up there and I just feel like, whoa, I'm like, was I possessed? I'm like, what happened to me? I'm like, or did something just simply overcome me to get into someone else? I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I think that would really be like the first time and like the only time ever where like a ghost actually had made that like physical, contact with me of getting into me and stuff. And I was just like, I even still to this day, I'm like what happened that night?
Yeah. Did she ever reveal why she was like looking over her shoulder the entire night?
No, she did not actually. I don't really think I even ever got the chance to ask her or whatnot, but then it's fine too, because I guess as time went on, years later have passed by. The lady who did the reading on me, apparently she did some more history, or she looked into it more, and apparently I guess the story kind of changed where I guess so much more the fact that it wasn't that this lady was, I guess, trying to get into me to get into Lillian. I guess it was more the fact that the lady she got into me to get me away from the room that I was staying there, because apparently I was staying in front of another room. It was called the nanny's room, and I guess that's also like where like back in the day, like where the kids at the house used to sleep and stuff. So I guess the spirit kind of got into me to get me away from the nanny's room to stop, I guess, like disturbing the kids or something, because maybe like the kids' spirits were there or something, and maybe she possibly tried to get me away from that room. So she's like, in a way, that was her way of saying like, I'm going to get inside of you to push you away from the nanny's room or something. So I'm like, that was an interesting theory, but I'm just like, yeah. So but yeah, with Lillian saying though, I never had a chance to ask her of like, like why were you looking over my shoulder like that? I mean, it creeped me out big time. I'm just like, what is she looking at? I don't know. I couldn't see it. I couldn't sense anything. I didn't know.
It just made you paranoid. It's like, okay.
Well, I'm just like, and at the same time, I'm like, there's like nothing that's like, from like the grunge movie where like it's attached to her and stuff. I'm like, there's nothing that's attaching me that's like, latched onto my shoulders is there. I'm like, I was legit scared.
I'm curious, what did your family think about you pursuing this type of field? What did your parents think?
It's funny because my dad, he does not believe in the paranormal at all whatsoever. He thinks
Until he
it's,
experiences himself.
well, it's funny with him because he does not believe in any of this stuff at all. But however, he supports me in it because every now and then, like once in a while on Facebook, I guess like either if it's someone shows it to him or if he finds it in his own research. But for for example, there was one time where he found out about a bed and breakfast place, I guess out in New York, that's not too far from Albany, and he ended up forwarding the link to me and stuff. And he's like, on Facebook, he messaged it to me and he's like, here, check, you might want to check this place out. I'm just like, Dad. I'm like, I mean, thanks, but I thought you didn't believe in this stuff. He's like, well, I don't, but it doesn't mean I can't support you. And it doesn't mean that if I come across cool places, it doesn't mean I still can't share them with you. And same thing with my stepmom too. Like she'll do the same thing. Like where like she'll go online and she'll find like, creepy abandoned places. And at the same time too, she'll be like, hey, Bob, here's a place you might want to check. Cause she doesn't believe in it either, but she's like, here's something you might want to check out. Like here's a cool, like for example, I remember there's a place in Connecticut, I guess, where she wanted to show me about. So she sent me the link for that. So I'm like, they don't believe in it, but they support me on it. So they'll be like, here's a haunted place you might want to go check out that we found the link for. Go check it out. Go explore. Go have fun. So I'm like, all right, thanks. So we do that. So.
That's what's up, man.
But but my mom, however, I gotta say this one a little bit quieter because she's in the other room. But she's kind of like 50-50 with it because I mean sometimes I don't know if she actually does support me or not, but she's kind of also religious too, so because she's always like, if you're investigating these places, you're allowing the devil to get into you or something. Like if you go check out like if you try to go investigate like a haunted house or something, that's your way of letting the devil get into you. So I'm just like
or so, like be super cautious that you don't but you don't bring anything home either.
Yeah, like be super cautious or just don't even do it at all in general. She's like, so, I mean, there are times where she will like, ask me that and she'll be like, oh, did you go check out that house? Did you go check out that building that's supposed to be haunted? I'm like, I might go check it out and stuff. It's like, oh, hey, do you want me to conduct an investigation here in your house? No, because that's going to let the devil in. You're going to bring the devil in. I don't want that. I'm just like, so it's like, it's kind of unbalanced with her. Like, I don't know if she does or not. That's the thing.
Well, I say that I'm glad I'm on this side of the screen.
Well,
if I was given the opportunity and I was surrounded by a dozen people, not just one or two, not like 3, not like 4. No, I'll only do it if, first off, someone else is leading the investigation. If I wasn't like just an outsider looking in, just someone tag along. I just want to tag along and see how it goes.
Just to experience it, get a feel for it, just to see like what happens.
As a group of people, not just like 2 of us,
Yeah, I've done that.
And I would never be in a room by myself.
Oh, I've done that before too. I've had moments where like I would be with some friends. I have a walkie-talkie and like I go into a room that was close by, not far away, but a nearby close room, and like I go into this one room, completely turn the lights out. And it was like, it was more for the fact, like, okay, I had my walkie-talkie and the guy has to be radioing me. Like, are you in there? Like, are you okay? I'm like, yep, I'm okay, over. So it's like, do you see anything? I'm like, well, it's dark in here and my eyes are playing tricks on me. So I am seeing stuff in here. But I'm just like, there are times where I think it's like, I'm like testing my ability to see like how well I can sustain to this stuff. So it's like, but you should never investigate places by yourself. That's
for sure. Heck
that's
yeah.
the first thing.
And my other fear is like taking something with you, taking something home,
Yes. Luckily, I don't, of all the investigations, of all the haunted places I've been to, I don't think anything has ever followed me home because I've never been terrorized by anything. Nothing has like, it's not like I wake up in the middle of the night and there's like a ghost of an old man that's like looking over me from like a location I was at and stuff. But apparently, I mean, I'm a little skeptic of it, but apparently one thing I heard that helps after investigation is people say if you take the herbal plant sage and if you burn it and then like when you burn it and like if you like like you rub it all over you like while like it's like casting all the smoke and everything, supposedly I've heard that sage helps to be like a protector in a way, like it helps to keep spirits away from you and stuff. And it's like whenever I've been on investigations in the past where like a lady would come up to me and she would have like a dry stick of sage and she would burn it and then she would just like do this all over me with it and stuff because it supposedly it prevents like evil spirits from following you home or something.
What's funny because on the TV shows, not saying it's all real, but those reenactment shows.
Yeah.
There's been instances where people use it and it works. Other times where they use it and it makes it worse.
Yeah, I've actually seen those too. That's why I'm very skeptic of it because that's why I'm always like, does this actually work or not? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm still kind of like when they come over to me and like, they burn the sage, and I'm just like, is this actually going to keep the spirit away from me? I'm like, or is it just one of those things where I just naturally, I have to make sure to keep my guard up and stuff because, for example, there are times where like, there's a nearby cemetery in Worcester, Massachusetts called Spidergate Cemetery. And for anyone out there who's known that place, I've been to the cemetery twice. I went there back in 2004. Had an experience there. Oh God, yes, I completely forgot about that. I had an experience there, and then I just went there back recently, and I went there back during the daytime, walking to the cemetery, and as I'm walking out of it, I'm just like, all right, what's up, everyone? If there's anyone here, I'm like, I was just like, like in the name of the Father and the Son, and like, and the Holy Ghost, like I command you, anyone that's here, to not follow me home. Like I command you to stay where you are and do not follow me. And then like, I walk away and nothing's happened to me. I mean, I've had no weird vivid dreams, no like waking up and, going down the hallway at night and seeing like a weird girl standing at the end of the hallway or something. I haven't seen anything like that. So it's, yeah, that's an interesting theory in a way.
Please tell me you've never used a Ouija board ever.
No. I stay away from those.
Smart man.
I've never used those, and I will never. I've had people try so hard to talk to me. They're like, "Oh, come on, just try this once." This
No, all it takes is once.
That's all.
And you're screwed.
Exactly. Yep. An old friend of mine, he said that I guess a long time ago, back in the 90s, his sister had some friends over, and they tried using one, and I guess they apparently opened up they believe that they opened up a portal in his sister's room because they had to move out of the house because it was starting to get haunted and stuff. So it's just like, I'm like, yep, I stay away from that. No way, no thanks. Even a fake one, like fake ones that people make, I won't do those either.
Yeah. We did this as kids, and I'll be honest with you, like, thank God nothing happened, but it's one of those things where you think back and it's like, oh, I kind of regret that, or maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's like, because like, how long is this going to terrorize us for? Because if we're going to move out now and like what's going to happen to the people who move into this house next or something. So it's just like, yeah, it's like, maybe, yeah, like you said, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. So you're thinking about moving to LA. What spots are you looking to investigate?
Good question. I did have a list of places, but I can't remember.
How about the Hollywood sign?
The what?
The Hollywood sign?
I mean, I've already been up that a couple times.
Oh, okay. Because apparently, like, there's an actress in the 30s who jumped off the H.
Yes, Penny Winstall, I think her name was. Yeah, the golden age of Hollywood, because apparently she got one really, really bad review, I guess, on a movie or something that completely demolished her on the inside, if you know the story.
Okay, so I might be wrong. I think the story goes she was a stage actress who was trying to go for film. She was like, I want to be a film star. And all she kept getting was stage roles. And then she got fed up. She got depressed about it. So she jumped off the H sign.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, like a few days later, once again, she, like, I guess they didn't know she died. After her suicide, she landed a role on stage again. So it's like, she just couldn't leave that cycle. Like they sent her a letter saying, hey, you got the role of this part in the stage play. So
it was already too late
tragic,
because she had already, and then of course I hear the stories now about the white woman who apparently walks up towards the Hollywood sign because there's what was the show? I forgot what the show was, but I just watched it a couple months ago too, where supposedly it was back I think in the 1980s where three friends, two guys and a girl, I guess, tried they were just driving around I guess Hollywood and looking for something to do, and I guess the show enacts that they end up going up to the Hollywood sign. And, they went up there, they made the sign, but then as they were starting to make their way back down, they were approached by a woman dressed up in like a white 1920s looking gown outfit. And I guess she was walking towards them up the hill, but like she was completely silent. Like she wasn't making a sound, like even like her footsteps, the sounds of like twigs snapping or stuff like that, like leaves brushing, no sounds were being made. And they kept on saying hello, hello, hello to her. She wouldn't respond. And eventually in the show, it shows her going up to them, and once she got very close to them, she they did the same with her face where she's like that, and like her face looked like a skeleton or something. Like it looked like a skull.
I'm sure they made it Hollywood
style. Yeah, Hollywood.
It's
stuff.
funny you say that. It's not my story, and it's a story I overheard. So a friend of mine, this was a few months ago, like earlier this year, a friend of mine, her friend went jogging on a trail and I forget which one. I'm sure it was, yeah, it must have been around the Hollywood sign. So her friend goes jogging early a.m. He's jogging, and he feels a tug on his shirt.
Oh.
Tug. He turns around, nothing's there, and he's like, okay, this is weird, but he just keeps on jogging.
Did he say how intense the tug was? Like, was it like as if like
I don't know.
like...
I was just overhearing it.
Oh.
But like he thinks that it was a warning. He thinks that the tugging was a warning for him, because what happened was after that he kept jogging. Lo and behold, what does he see? Something, a hooded, somebody in a hood, something like that, like a figure coming his direction while he's jogging.
Yeah.
Silent, completely silent. I don't know if it's a man or woman. I don't know if the figure was a man or woman, but it, head down, saying nothing, right? No, like no reaction, right? So he's jogging, passes by the figure, says hello, nothing, no reaction. Still jogs a little bit, turns around, no one's there. So this stuff must be frequent. And did your friends say, or sorry, not your friends, but in the reenactment, was it a certain time? Like, was it early a.m.?
I think in the show I was watching, I'll have to send the link for the show too. So like, if anybody wants to check it out, I think it just showed it being late at night or something.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, and obviously like, they made this show like a lot more intense for the purpose of Hollywood. But yeah, like the late that they showed, like it was weird because she had like, her face was she was very white pale, wearing like a gown outfit from like the 1920s era and stuff. And it's just like, I mean, like wearing like gloves and everything and stuff too. And like, she's like approaching them as like, they're trying to jump over the gate and trying to get into their car and stuff. But it just looked like it might have been around like, I don't know, like probably maybe 12 midnight or even like 1 a.m. or something like that. But it was just like, it was pretty late, like in the night or something when they showed it.
Now, before the recording, we were talking about the Roosevelt Hotel, which is funny because I used to host mixers. I used to host mixer events at the Roosevelt. So,
that's so cool.
Why is that an interest to you? Because
I've just the first time when I went out to California, when I went out to Hollywood and LA and stuff, I was with my dad. It was back in summer of 2008, and we flew in stuff. And the first night we were in there, we walked down to Hollywood Boulevard and everything. We went to check out the sights, and then I think the next day that we were there, we were downtown Hollywood Boulevard again during the daytime. And I think I'm trying to remember where I heard, like, it was one of those scenarios too where I overheard it from someone. Someone was talking a story about it, saying how the Roosevelt Hotel was haunted, especially by the spirit of Marilyn Monroe, and saying how her mirror was there and stuff. And it's one of those things where, like, if you approach her mirror, you'll actually be able to see the ghostly apparition of Marilyn Monroe appear in the mirror and stuff. And then I remember my dad and I, we actually walked into the main lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, and oh my God, and when I walked in there, I mean, we obviously didn't go to any rooms or anything, but we just walked in the lobby, we were walking around and stuff, and I could just remember just picking up like the vibes I was in that were there, like just the history of the place. Like, just walking around, and I'm just like, just imagine all of a sudden, like, if you just like turn 1 second and then there's Marilyn Monroe right there and stuff. Oh my God, I would love to go back to that place again so badly.
You're like hoping something happens. Like, I'm hoping I see Marilyn.
Well, that's the other thing too, because one of the things that I've kind of learned over the years with paranormal investigating is that when it comes to doing this stuff, it's not on demand. Like, you can't you can't let it happen. Like, for example, you could go to the most haunted place in the whole world, for example, and do an overnight investigation and have absolutely nothing happen at all. Nothing will happen. As opposed to, if you go back the next day and all of a sudden, like, chairs are being thrown to the ceiling, or if, like, glass or mirrors are starting to shatter and stuff like that and whatnot. But it's just like, it's just one of those things that it's not on demand. But yeah, the Roosevelt Hotel, I've definitely heard the stories about how Marilyn Monroe's ghost has appeared there.
LA is a very historic place. Very historic. Now, here's the fun part.
Yeah.
So, for the last hour, you've been talking. You've been sharing your experiences. Let me share mine.
Please.
I mean, thank God they're not like extreme. They're not extreme. They're just like small as this here and there. And
well, for the record, I hope I'm not scaring you or anything with my stories. Hopefully, you're not terrified.
So I live in LA. I'm from LA, as you know.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's right.
This is my second year of living there. I roomed with my buddies. There's three of us, and it was in Van Nuys. So it was in Van Nuys.
I know that place.
They had three rooms, and I was like the fourth guy. So I was on the couch. I was on the couch in the living room. So that was my area.
Right.
So the way that the apartment's set up, living area, and the kitchen are basically next to each other. Like, you can just walk into the next room.
Okay.
Then the door, the window, and the entrance, front door is to my left. So where my couch is against the wall. I can look out the window, right?
Oh,
Because it's
okay.
right next to the window, the doorway, and then my friend's room, and then a hallway, which the other roommates were in. So 3 rooms, and then the living area.
Hmm.
And this is so random because there was nothing that led up to it. It just happened, right? So and there's 2 instances in particular, 2.5, I would say. There's 2.5 instances in particular that just out of nowhere it happened, and I don't know if they're related or not, but it could be. So one day, closer to, because I was there from 2018, so January 2018 to April 2019. I was there for a year and some
Oh,
change.
okay. So recent.
So this happens January of 2019. So I'm sleeping, and I was already sleeping, and something woke me up. What happened was it sounded like pots and pans being tapped on, right? And
Oh,
mind you,
okay.
the kitchen's right there. However, it didn't sound like it was in the drawers. It sounded like randomly it was coming from the walls in front of me. Not directly in front of me.
Really?
Not directly in front of me, but on the walls like ahead of me somewhere. And in the kitchen, there are things hung up there, like random stuff, like random decorative stuff hung on the wall, but none of
Yeah.
them with metal or anything that would make that kind of pot and pan kind of sound. So for like a minute straight, I'm hearing this noise, like tapping, 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 and I'm in the dark observing, like. And mind you, I personally believe in the paranormal, so I'm standing there like, oh, is this actually happening to me? Like, is this happening?
Am I
So
witnessing this?
I'm laying there. I didn't even sit up. I'm just laying there, like watching, observing the kitchen, because I'm like, okay, is anything gonna pop up right now? Is anything gonna pop out of me? So I'm
Right.
hearing this noise for a whole minute straight. Then it just dies down. I don't know why I waited to turn on the light. It happened
When
to
you say
me.
it dies down, like did it stop instantly or did like it like fade dying down?
I would say it faded to where it stopped happening. Like it was like a crescendo, like a decrescendo in a way. Like
Oh.
and this happened maybe
Oh,
a good
I
minute
see.
or so.
Okay.
Good minute or so. I don't know why this happened, but I don't know why I thought of this, but I turned on the light after it happened. like,
Oh.
like it finished, then I turned on the light.
And then you turn into like, okay, yeah, late, yeah.
Yeah. So this is around, you know how they said the wishing hours are three or whatever. This is maybe around 2 or 3. I kid you
Okay.
not, bro. Turned on that light. I stood up. I stayed up until sunrise. Then I went back to sleep. So I was like, I can't sleep.
Oh.
So I literally flipped on the light in the living room and just waited. I was like, okay, let me just wait for the sun to come up before I take my nap. You know.
Right,
A week
right.
after. Once again, I don't know if it's related or not. A week after, well, I'm sure you've heard of a shadow person because you're talking about shadow person.
Yep.
I sometimes have sleep paralysis.
Oh,
And
yeah.
luckily for me, most of the times when it happens, I see nothing. But I know people see things.
Yeah.
When it happens to me, thankfully, I see nothing unless it's my own imagination coming up with something. Like one time, if I'm diverging from the story, but one time I had sleep paralysis, and I'm in my head I'm like, oh God, what if this shirt hanging on my what if this shirt hanging from the wall, not the wall, the closet starts like flying towards me, right? Because I made that scenario in my head, and
Oh,
lo and behold, my
yeah.
imagination does it. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Why
That's
did
the
I do this to
worst
myself?
to do because I've done that too.
Yeah, it's like my imagination created something that wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to the
I
LA
hate
story.
that.
Going back to the LA story, I'm sleeping on my side, like I'm sleeping on my left side, and I have this episode of sleep paralysis. In this instance of all instances, this has never happened to me. In this instance of all instances, I see a shadow person over me, like holding me down.
Oh.
Like you know how they could describe it, like as a black figure, no
Yeah.
features, just a body but no actual features. So
Yep.
this black figure, this shadow figure, is holding me down, and I'm religious, so I'm not trying to put religion on anybody, but
Oh, no, no, by all means.
in my head, I'm like, I was saying a prayer to Jesus. First, no,
Mm.
first off, before that, when I experienced it, it's funny because I wasn't scared. It was just more so, oh, this is happening.
Like, wow, like this is like I'm experiencing this.
This is actually
like,
happening.
This is
I hear
happening.
stories. I've heard the stories. I've never experienced it myself. I heard the stories, and it's actually happening to me now. So in my head, I'm like, okay. First time, my reaction was, okay, this is happening. Secondly, I started praying in my head. Gone. So once it disappeared after I prayed in my head, I was able to get up, like, oh, whoa.
Like you can like move again. It's just like,
yeah.
Oh my, yeah.
So I sat up once again, flicked on the switch. I stayed up.
Yep.
I stayed up, and I was like, okay, this actually happened. But it's one of those situations where I couldn't tell you the source of it. Why did it happen to me? I hop on Google, hop on like Wikipedia, shadow people, because I know the terminology, but I just don't know what's about. Some people think it's an alien. Some people think this and that.
Yeah,
I'm like, whatever.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like what was consistent with it was people say if you like I said, I don't want to bring up religion, but people say if you pray, then boom, it's gone. It happened in my instance.
I have heard that. I mean, I've done that myself too. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, like times when I've walked out of cemeteries, I'm just like, like name
Yeah.
the Father and the Son, and like, I command you from the Holy Spirit not to follow me home.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it happened to me. Like I prayed, gone, right? Flick on the switch, stayed up till sunrise. A week later, a friend of mine was visiting LA, so I let him stay on the couch. He stayed on the couch. He crashed the night on the couch. I slept on we had this big beanie chair, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I slept on that for the night. And this episode happened, I kid you not. It was light. There was light. It was this was the early hours of the morning, but the sun was already coming out. So it wasn't even pitch black outside. The sun was already up.
Yeah.
So I'm sleeping on the couch. So not on the couch, the beanie chair. And once again, this feeling of being held down. I open my eyes, and the shadow person is once again over me. But it was different for this time around, because when the shadow person holds you down, they're like on top of you, but they're in line with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This shadow person was coming up from like above me, like how like the Spider-Man kiss, he's upside down. So I was upside down. Yeah. And he was hovering over me this way, like above my head, like looking down at me like this.
Oh, like, so it's like he's kind of like coming over you and like looking, like staring at you, kind of like as if he's almost upside down or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So staring at me.
Kind of like.
Yeah, exactly. Just like
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that,
wow.
I said, that happened. That was maybe 2 seconds. Say a little prayer in my head. After going, once again, my reaction is, okay, this is happening again. Say a little prayer in my head. Say a little prayer in my head, boom, gone, disappears. And I wake up, I get up, yo, it's there's sunlight outside. What? How is this happening to me when there's sun out? Like there's light out. My friend woke up too. I didn't scare him awake. He woke up too. I explained him the situation. He goes, oh, okay. Like he was just like, wow, that happened to you.
It's like, whoa.
So luckily for me, I mean, that was it. That was the very last thing that ever happened to me. Every now and then I have this experience.
And you said that was that was back in 2019. You said,
yeah,
right?
Last year. Yeah,
that was okay.
That was
wow, that was
anything happened.
That was
last time anything happened. And so from time to time, this happens to me too. No matter where I sleep, it's not, and it doesn't even scare me per se. It just startles me, right? So it could be in my room, it could be at a hotel, it could be in it could be at a relative's place when I'm sleeping. So sometimes I'll be sleeping, and all of a sudden I get like physically, I feel like I'm getting pushed awake, right? Like physically moved. Not like push as in like I'm gonna slip out of bed.
It's like giving you like a nudge or something.
Attention,
or?
Yeah, attention, right?
Right. Okay.
And then I open my eyes, and I don't know if it's like my imagination, or if it's something actually there. Sometimes I'm something pushes me awake. I open my eyes, and above me is like white mist, right? You can't really formulate like a figure or any features, which is white mist, and then it happens for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then it dissipates, right?
Really?
Once again, I'm not sure if it's like my mental. It could be imagination or something there. I don't feel harm at all. It's just like it just happens, and it's like, okay.
Well, actually, since you just mentioned that too, for the record, of all these spirits or whatever that I have encountered over the years, same with me too. Like
Besides Blue Man.
It's hard. Well, actually, even with that one too, like it's hard to say with the one where about my possession stuff. It's hard to say with that one, but even with Blue Man, I can't say I really felt any danger. I mean,
Yeah.
like I felt because I mean, like since all these experiences, like I've had different spirits, maybe come and see me that have come and gone, but I've never like actually like had like felt like, oh my god, like I had to go see a priest or something. Like I've never felt that danger. So yeah, I mean, same thing. Yeah, like I've never felt like I was being followed or something.
Yeah. I mean, and these are like minor instances. I'm not gonna tell you I'm haunted. I'm not gonna tell you like my house is haunted. It's just I'm sure it happens to a lot of people too. They just don't say it.
Yeah, I would totally fly out to your house just to do an overnight investigation. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, but I mean, it has happened to me at hotels too, where I'm visiting. Like when I travel, like I'm at a hotel. Sometimes when I'm at a hotel nowadays, I'll leave the light on.
What was that Motel 6 commercial? It's like, or
We'll leave the light on for you.
We'll leave the light on for you.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Bro. But this has been a fun chat, man. I thank you so much for your time. Where can folks find you on social media, and do you have an official site you can share?
Oh, yes. So, what should I do? People can try to friend me on my Facebook, which is just I'll put my name. There's that, and then I can do.
Just as it says in your square, Robert Pfeiffer. Think of yourself, Pfeiffer guys.
Exactly. Yep.
Pfeiffer. Yeah.
And then I guess I think it's at just add Bob Pfeiffer for Bob Pfeiffer, or try Fifeman26 for my Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah. That's you, right? So when I was doing my IG lives the other week, that was you, right? That was you.
That was probably me. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Nice. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, no problem, man. Absolutely. So you have some great stuff you put up, and I want to be your top fan with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I think that's Bob Pfeiffer or Fifeman26 for Instagram and Twitter, and then YouTube. It's just actually for YouTube. I can just put my link on there, so that will.
Yeah, and we'll definitely link it in the group chat. I'm not the chat. I'm looking at the group chat. We'll link your YouTube in the caption when I post this video.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. So I'll just because basically, yeah, it's just that's just the name for my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Bob Pfeiffer. Yeah. And actually, you know what? And I'm a little embarrassed to do this, but you know what? What the hell? Why not?
Why not? Go for it.
This is the name of my older YouTube channel. I don't make videos for it anymore, but I still keep it up because I know that old fans and even myself will still tune into it. But it is Bob is Weird TV. Right there, because I do a lot of green screen work on my video productions, and I have some really out of this world, just crazy stuff that don't even ask me why I made some of my videos I made.
I'm gonna ask you. I'm just gonna observe. And say
you can ask me. You can be like, man, what were you on when you made this? Just like,
Robert, thank you so much for your time, man, and enjoy the rest of your day, but also it's gonna be with the weekend, so enjoy your weekend, bro.
All right, well, thank you so much for also asking me to be a part of this too. Like, this was a really great fun experience. I always have the most fun when I talk to people about the paranormal and my experience and stuff too. And yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for interviewing me and everything. This was such a lot of fun, man.
Take care, man, and see you later.
You too, man. I'll see you soon.